Okay, video number 46. So, yeah, I've been speaking for about an hour. Um, this was the other thing. On video 45, I said, oh, there was something else I wanted to talk about. It's not easy to talk about it. It is actually mental hard work to share this stuff. It is mentally exhausting, but don't worry, I'll have a coffee, a couple of paracetamol, I'll be fine. I am doing this and I'm sharing this in the hope that somebody might actually watch this video, get something from it, and it might help them realise they're not the only one if they've also experienced these things. Now, I am, as I said up here, I'm not an influencer. It's not a popularity contest. I'm not one of those narcissists who wants easy money from you know, just telling you what you want to hear. Um, you know, I mean, I look at creating stuff on YouTube as I'm putting it out there. If anyone listens to it, good. But what I've realised over the years of doing YouTube videos, even though a lot of my videos, it's like you get zero views, if you just put it out there and create a useful title, somebody somewhere might come along, and watch it and get something from it. And because the vain hope that one person might get something out of it, is enough motivation to do what I do. And me talking about it and me sharing it is actually good for my mental health, because it's like I feel that I'm warning people about cults. And on my last channel, that got deleted by the cult. That's why I don't really use the name of the cult that I was in, because they've got this cyber evangelist guy who goes onto YouTube, oh yeah, get that video taken down, and they've got somebody who's working in YouTube that they use to, for their own advantage, I mean, the larger the cult, they're quite devious well, they are very devious in what they do, but, if you go onto the correct forums, and you talk to the right people, a lot of cults, I would say social media is completely unethical. I mean, I just look at my X.com feed and I think Elon Musk is making money from just all this shit and all this violence and all this porn. And I'm thinking, why am I was looking about F1 cars, and then there's some porn coming up. I don't want porn from Elon Musk. I don't want your dirty magazines, and your violence and your, playing one person off the other. So I very rarely watch X these days, but it's like you use social media, you're looking for something, and then there's all this porn and violence, and that's not good for your mental health. I don't think Elon Musk gives a flying fuck about how X.com is damaging the mental health of people. He doesn't give a fucking shit. He's a trillionaire. But let's get down to it. So I'm doing these videos in the vain hope that they might help somebody somewhere, understand, or, get them thinking about what happened, and maybe that helps them with their recovery. And in a previous channel where I mentioned the name of the group, it's like I was getting emails and from people, oh, I was in that group, do you want to, have a talk and help, I could help them out, and I would say since about 2013, people that I'm aware of that I've helped, probably around 100 people, directly that I have, helped out of the cult. But because of social media, it's like there's people who you talk to, like right now, that will never see my face, don't know who I am, but I might help you just that little bit, a little 1%. And if all us ex-members would share our stories, so people can learn how they were manipulated, how they were conned, and how they can recover. I don't talk a vast amount about recovery because I haven't. I haven't. I've asked cult experts for help, but, it's like if it's one on one, they usually want money, and it's like, well, I can't afford to, I'm unemployed, I don't have an income, I'm clinically depressed, but I'm still trying to help people, you know, um, and it is, I'm trying to hold back the tears. It's so sad that there's so many ex-members who are broke, who have had mental breakdowns, whose lives have been ruined, divorce, they don't see their kids again, the kids are in the cult or whatever, or the kids have, I mean, there's so much, not just abuse that goes on behind the scenes in cults, but trauma. Oh, where's daddy? Oh, daddy ended his life. Daddy's not here, daddy's in heaven. And it's the mental side of it, as well as the financial side, that just proves these cults for the satanic demons they are. So in this video, I'm going to talk about 3 mental breakdowns briefly. Death. Death. Now, there's one thing guaranteed in life. Well, there's a couple of things. You'll be born and you'll die. Anything that happens in between, it seems to be a toss of a coin. But, in a cult, they will teach that they are the only saved people. And people who are not in the cult are not saved. That's your Bible-based cult, yeah? And you get things like the Westboro Baptist Church. Oh, God hates fags, so why does he smoke? It's like, if God hates people so much and he's sending so many people to hell, then why bloody make them in the first place? Is he just some kind of psychopath, that hates people and wants them to burn? It makes you wonder the mindset of cult members, and how religion and brainwashing is literally holding back evolution on planet Earth. Even in my life, I've had 3 mental breakdowns. I can't work. I've got this fantasy that one day I'm going to make a company. I've got my friend, he's also this fantasy. Oh yeah, we're going to make this company and we're going to go places. Yeah, and we've been saying that for how long now? The ironic thing is I've actually got the skills. I can program, I can do electronics. I'm not stupid at business, but because of mental trauma, depression, some people call it PTSD, it kills you. You wake up and you just think, I'm going to do fucking nothing today. What's my mates up to? Because it's not as if we live in a world where if you're slightly slower than the next person, you're not going to get the job. So even though I have the skills, I can't work 60 hours a week for some greedy IT corporate company that wants an arm and a leg. I could give you 10 hours a week or 20 hours a week, maybe, but, why would they hire you if they got somebody who hasn't had mental breakdowns or hasn't had trauma? If you've been fucked over by a cult, it's game over because nobody gives a shit. That's just the way it is. I've been looking for work since 2008. Oh no, unfortunately, because there's better people than me around. It's just fucking depressing, which is also part of mental health. But the first mental breakdown was when, my mother died. My father had already died. Other people had died in the family. And there was a series of deaths. And it was like, you got the camel and it's the one straw that breaks the camel down. And I remember this guy and he said to me, Oh, it's sorry to hear about your mother. It's a shame she didn't make it. And just a few words, that was that straw that was just too much, that I broke and I cracked and life fell apart. So, it's not. And then I was in the mental hospital for about a month, and it's a a mental breakdown, psychosis, delusional, seeing things that, or misinterpreting reality, not seeing things that aren't there, but just misinterpreting people. And it was not a good time. It was not a good time. But I recovered. I recovered from the mental breakdown. It was, but I always have these headaches. Even to today, I still get headaches from the damage that was done. Goodness me, over 20 years ago. You know, I get a lot of headaches. Nothing fixes them. I have a fractured rib. I have a damaged hip. It's like I am completely fucked over. You know, a wounded soldier. But then I got into the end times and all of that stuff, and then it was just too intense. I was thinking I was getting visions from God, and God was teaching me things that I needed to tell everybody about. Ahmadinejad, he's the Antichrist. And delusional, and it was so much mental pressure. Again, I remember I had this mental breakdown, and I was just lying down in the middle of a road, looking at the sky, and my friend sort of came over and he said, "Are you all right?" And I was just in such a crazy state of mind. Um, and then there was the third mental breakdown. I kept on recovering, I kept on recovering, and life was all right. I was even working, you know. But then there was this final mental breakdown. The devil finally did the three knockdown rule, and that was it. TKO, you know. I mean, I have recovered from the third mental breakdown as well, believe it or not. But this was in about 20, what was it? 2010, something like that. And my friend who had left the ICOC was trying to get me into the ICC, Kip McKean 2.0 cult, right? And he was he was being really friendly. Oh, come on, you love it. Yeah, you love it. And he was my friend, but he was sort of pulling me into the new group. And I went along to the new group, and I met this bloke from Canada, this evangelist guy called Tim. And he always put the pressure on. He was always trying to manipulate me. And he said, well, do it for 30 days, the 30-day challenge, right? Now, I was living about, I don't know, 30 miles away from Cult HQ in London, kind of thing. And, I wasn't working, I didn't have a job, and yet he was putting pressure on me to come up to London several times a week, just jump on the train when trains were affordable. So, I'd get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning, get on this train. I enjoyed the train journey, looking out the window, mindless, you know, getting up to London, and then recruit, meeting, like working a full-time job. Being a cult recruiter is harder than a full-time job, honestly. And the pressure just broke me down. Again, psychosis, delusion, and I couldn't go. I said to them, I can't go. And then they said, oh, do you want to go to hell instead then? I mean, they say it in a nice way. Oh, you don't love God, you don't want to go to heaven. We got to keep meeting up, or the devil will get you. And that was the three mental breakdowns, But I recovered, but not recovered well enough to get a job again, because the damage was done. I'd been the soldier that had just taken too many bullets, couldn't come back from it. And that's where I am now.